Hello and welcome to the Etsy Consultant Podcast. This podcast is something that I've been wanting to do for a long time, but I've been so busy with everything to do with running my consultancy. Only now have I actually got round to setting this up. I thought I'd take a little bit of time in this episode to explain a little bit about who I am, where I've come from, and what the goals of this podcast are. So first of all, the first thing that I want to really emphasize is that this podcast is going to be slightly slower and more freewheeling in nature. I find that YouTube and the structure of my YouTube content is very fast. It's much quicker paced, and I want this podcast to be slower so that you can listen to it in a more relaxed way and still get a lot of value out of these episodes that I'm going to put out. So the first thing that I want you to know about this podcast is that it's going to be exclusive content. So unlike I've found out that people who want to know more about Etsy and follow people on YouTube are getting really annoyed that content is just being rehashed directly from YouTube into a podcast. And I don't want to do that. I want to make sure that when I speak to you all, whatever platform it's on, you're happy with what I'm doing. That's the most important thing. So every piece of content that I put out here on the podcast is just for the podcast, and I welcome you here, and I look forward to hearing what you've got to say about my podcast in the reviews, should you choose to leave one. So the first thing that I want to let you know is, what's my story? How did I get into Etsy? Because we all got into Etsy for one reason or another, didn't we? And my story is somewhat unusual. I'm in the process of writing a book about this journey that I've been on. I'll give you the beginning piece of this story right now so that you can understand how I got into Etsy. So way back in November 2013, I left England with my partner and our then 4-year-old son. We were looking for a better life. We were completely disillusioned with life in England. I was spending long hours at work and I wasn't able to see my partner and my son. It was causing problems, and the miserable weather in England as well was something of a problem. It's always grey, it's always raining. You get a week of sunshine and everybody's out with their barbecues getting burnt by the sun, and then the rain comes back down again, and that's the end of that. So we were looking for a better life, and we had lots of options on the table as to where we could go. And we were looking at the Far East, we were looking at Italy, we were looking at France and the Caribbean, all sorts of places that seemed to be more appealing than England. And one evening, Steph, my partner, found a tiny little Greek island. I'm half Greek, right? I'm half Greek, and I'd never heard of this island. I wonder if you've heard of it. She said, I found the perfect place for us. It's called Icaria, a Greek island. It's the island where people forget to die. They all live really, really long lives. The island is a blue zone. It's got great communities, villages, and it's perfect for families. And she kind of sold it to me on those lines. I'd never heard of Icaria. Have you? It's one of those places that I just never heard of. So we very, very quickly decided that that was the place for us. And we proceeded to sell everything that we had. I left my well-paid consultancy job in London, and we headed off to a Greek island on a ferry with 2 large wooden boxes being sent over on ship freight to arrive a few weeks later. And we got to the island of Icaria, and to say that it caused a seismic shock on that island was an understatement. People don't go to live in Icaria. It's not an island that people go to live on. The last people that went to live there, to stay there, that weren't native, ended up having a DVD, a film made about them. It was a huge shock for the island, and I'll never forget when we first moved into our first house on the island. People started to come round and knock on the door I'd open the door and they say, "Are you from England? Are you the English people?" And we was like, "Yes." And they'd all ask the same questions. Who are you? Where are you from? Why are you here? They were very, very skeptical about why would people leave their well-paid jobs, lovely lives in England and come to a career. So that was very, very strange to understand and comprehend that we'd made any impact on their lives at all, let alone people coming from miles away to find out who we were and what we were up to. We found out afterwards that they considered the possibility of us being spies, Turkish spies, which I thought was a joke, but there was an element of seriousness to it. They were really, really confused. And looking at it from their side, I don't blame them. I don't blame them. People just don't move to the island from places like England. So anyway, moving on, let's move on and get to how I got into Etsy. We needed money. We had a finite amount of financial resource available, and that was rapidly dwindling, and we needed a way to earn money. And one of the things about Ikaria was they had these wonderful rugged beaches, and on these rugged beaches were these little stones, these little flat stones, these little round stones, and they were all sorts of wonderful colors that I'd never seen on any beach anywhere before. You know, we had green, orange, some purples, black, white, marble, just incredible. And we said to each other, I wonder if people would like to use these. Would people, minerals, all minerals on this planet have a value. And we wondered if these tiny little stones, these little pebbles, people would be interested in them, to buy them. So we started to put them into sets. So little flat ones, little round ones, brown ones, pink ones. We started to put them into sort of kits or sets. And we then sort of thought to ourselves, where can we sell them? What sort of marketplace can we sell on? And we had a friend who lived nearby that had started selling necklaces on Etsy. So this is early 2014. And so we thought, well, why not? Let's just test it. It sounds crazy, little pebbles, selling them and making money, it just sounds ridiculous. But Etsy was the place, and we started to sell these kits, these sets of pebbles, and slowly people started to buy them. I'll never forget the first order. It was for about $46. It was 8 sets of stones, or 7 or 8 sets of stones. And I came into work. We had a little seaside shop by the village beach where near where we lived. And our goal was to open up some kind of tourist shop. But prior to that happening, I came into work. I had my laptop on my desk. And, the famous Etsy cha-ching noise went off, and I couldn't believe it. I opened the Etsy, looked at the order, €43, $46, something like that. My jaw hit the floor. I just could not believe that somebody wanted our little pebbles. And so my Etsy journey was born, and I started to realize that you could sell all sorts of things on Etsy. Literally anything was possible. Remember, 2014, this was a long time ago when it came to Etsy, and opportunities were everywhere at that time. So we started to grow the store and list more items, and then my technical head started to take over because I was involved in IT as a freelancer and a consultant in London. And I started to realize that, certain listings on Etsy started to sell more. And then I realized and started to understand how this quality score mechanism worked. So listings that didn't sell, they didn't get much traffic. Listings that did sell, Etsy kept giving them more traffic. And this fascinated me. So I started testing and started to sort of put more listings in and put more listings in based on what was selling. And then I noticed that those listings were selling. And then I noticed that the whole store started to become more visible. And so my journey as an Etsy consultant had already started unraveling the mechanics of the algorithm. And ever since that time, in late 2014, early 2015, I've been understanding how Etsy works as a platform. And then I started to teach people how to do the same as what I was doing. And that started back in late 2015. And then I realized that I was helping other people that wanted to build stores on Etsy and grow and make money. What I was teaching them and what I teach everybody now on my YouTube channel was working. Store after store after store would benefit from the system and the process that I started to build. And over the last 8 years or so, I've refined and deepened my relationship with Etsy from a consultancy perspective. So bringing us gently up to the present day, over the last 8 years, I've worked with thousands and thousands of Etsy stores. And during that time, been lucky and privy enough to see the data that comes in from these stores and test and try new techniques and refine this system and process with my clients to bring the results that they want. Now, let me be clear, not everyone succeeds. You'll notice as you join me on my podcast journey, and please check out my YouTube channel, and you will quickly see I'm not like anyone else when it comes to talking about Etsy. When it comes to teaching about Etsy, you'll find the information and techniques that I talk about are opposite to what everyone else says. But there's a really good reason for that. I'm an 8 years long Etsy consultant with a YouTube channel. Everybody else on YouTube is an Etsy YouTuber with one Etsy store, Facebook group, and they're selling affiliate marketing and courses. You will notice everything to do with me is just me. I'm not affiliated with anyone. I don't work with any SEO companies. I don't work with anyone. And that hopefully will tell you something about where I'm coming from. And please have a look in the comments on my YouTube channel and see what I'm talking to everybody on my YouTube channel. I answer every single comment. There's not a single comment that I don't reply to unless it's rude, in which case it gets deleted. But other than that, I'm talking to everybody on YouTube. And now I want to open up the conversation here on my podcast. So moving forwards, I want to educate you on how Etsy works, how Etsy's trust and visibility system works. So Etsy calls it shop and listing quality score, right? You will know these words. You will know them as a seller. And Etsy calls their system shop and listing quality score. These are very, very poor words to describe what this system is. It's a trust and visibility system. And I often see on YouTube and Reddit and Instagram when people pay for horrendously priced courses coming from YouTube. There's a few people out there that charge a lot of money for terrible courses. And then the people that comment on Reddit about the money they spent, oh, I fell for this course, it was $3,000. Other people jump in and say, oh, you're so foolish, you're stupid. All the information is readily available in the seller handbook, right? You can see that in the Etsy forums as well when people comment about people they've followed, money they've spent. And the reply is, you're silly, all the information is available in the seller handbook. I would just like to clearly state, no, it's not. It absolutely isn't all available in the seller handbook. You don't build 6-figure Etsy businesses and 7-figure Etsy businesses based on the seller handbook. There is huge volumes of information that Etsy doesn't give you, that Etsy doesn't tell us, that you have to do a job like I do over 8 years to uncover what on earth goes on inside this algorithm. And people that talk about Etsy on YouTube's the main culprit for bad Etsy advice. They think they understand how Etsy works, but they don't. Because they've got a store that they've done sort of 6 figures on or something like that, they then think that that qualifies them to teach others how to sell on Etsy. It really doesn't. It really doesn't. When people come to me, and now hopefully you found me on this podcast, you'll quickly realize that it's kind of Nick's way and then everybody else's way, because everybody else kind of says the same thing. SEO, 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 keywords, get this application, use this program, use social media, and all this just malarkey and claptrap that doesn't actually help you very much at all. And then you come to me and my message is like, if their message is hot, mine is cold. If theirs is black, mine is white. But as I say, this is because I'm coming from a place of work. So this is my full-time job, and I've been doing it for the last 8 years, building and growing businesses on Etsy. And most important of all, and this is what nobody does on these YouTube channels, fix failing Etsy businesses. So that's the nitty-gritty. That's the dirty job that no one talks about, no one mentions. Most businesses on Etsy don't succeed, do they? They just don't. They either just make a few sales here and there, or they fail without any sales at all. So when clients come to me, they want it fixed. They want to know, well, what did I do wrong and how do I fix it? And that's where I come in. And that is bloody hard work. There's no other word for it. It's so hard to do. And you've got to know what you're doing to help people. SEO, it's not going to cut it. You're joking, right? You think messing around with some keywords is going to all of a sudden make you sales? I've got a personal crusade against all the peddlers of the magic of SEO. It's just rubbish. It's absolute rubbish. SEO has a limited importance in your Etsy store. It's never more than limited. And this huge world of SEO and money and programs has sprung up out of Etsy not telling people what's going on with their algorithm, and then companies and YouTubers taking over and realizing if there's confusion, there's money to be made. So you'll never hear me recommend an SEO tool. You'll never hear me recommend social media. Social media for new and growing Etsy stores is a virus. It's so dangerous to use social media on new and growing Etsy stores because you don't get rewarded for the sales you make on social media traffic with quality score. This is something I explain exhaustively on my YouTube channel. And if you're interested in that, go and see my YouTube channel to understand why you shouldn't be sending social media traffic to your Etsy store. Sure, if you're doing loads of sales every day, every week, every month, it doesn't matter so much. No, it doesn't. It only matters when you're a new store and you're a growing store. That's the critical point in time, and you don't want to be sending social media traffic to your store at that time. My YouTube handle is @Etsy Consultant. So please go and check out my videos there. There's so much to learn. And also be here as well, because I'm going to be putting out exclusive content just for my podcast in this longer format, a slightly more relaxed tone. So when you're listening to me working or doing whatever you're doing, it's not making you angry and frustrated because I keep jump cutting and or I'm copying my material from YouTube. So now I run a full-time Etsy consultancy. I have thousands of clients all over the world that I've been working with since early 2015. And it's a job that I have continually learned more every day with. So just like you guys on your Etsy journey, as a consultant, a mentor, a coach, I'm also learning all the time and refining my own techniques and processes to help people. So please subscribe to my podcast. I've literally just opened this. I'm brand new to it. I'd love some feedback on how what you think about this podcast. If you'd like to let me know, and please, I would love you to do that, just send an email to inquiries@etsy-consultant.com. That's inquiries@etsy-consultant.com. Let me know if you're joining my podcast. Let me know if you're going to start following. That would be wonderful. You can send me comments by email. You can leave me reviews on my podcast as well. I'd really appreciate that. And of course, if you want to work with me, just email me on inquiries@etsy-consultant.com and I'll reach out back to you and we can work out what to do with your Etsy problem or your Etsy situation. So I aim to release podcast content probably once every 2 weeks, something like that. I want to take my time with it. I don't want to put out content all the time that's low quality. I want to make sure I'm bringing something to you that's valuable. So something like that will be my schedule. So I look forward to reading your reviews and any information you want to send to me to my email address, which I've just mentioned. And yeah, let's see where all this goes. Thank you.